G'day chaps, 'tis I, Clownpuncher139. Arkham Origins has quickly jumped up in my ranking, and is pretty close to becoming my favorite in the series. One of those reasons is the incredibly overlooked story. I cannot stress enough how great this story actually is, and how much it was overlooked and shamed when it first came out. One aspect of this story that's often pushed to the sidelines is the incredible dynamic between Bruce and Alfred. Bruce and Alfred are at their absolute best in Arkham Origins, and I feel it's only right to discuss them and their one amazing scene. Not much else to say, so let's begin.
Gee, Crane, that better not be you. Oh, no. I must have clicked a bad link, and now my computer has a scarecrow virus. If only I had used the sponsor of this video, Atlas VPN, before this had happened. At this point, everyone needs a VPN in their lives, and right now, Atlas is running a huge discount. If you click the link in the description or pinned comment, you can get a 3-year subscription for just $1.99 a month with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Malicious links and ads are found aplenty online, but Atlas will outright block them from your computer and even alert you if someone tries to steal your data. And it even stops Google and other search engines from tracking you, giving you real organic search results not corrupted by ads. Sometimes your favorite show is on a certain streaming service, but the company just decided it's region locked from your country. With Atlas, you can change your location to somewhere it is available. And speaking of streaming services, Atlas helps you save money if you feel the need to sign up for every single one. Just find the country with the cheapest subscription rate and sign up there. It's not even exclusive to streaming, you can get cheaper flights, hotels, and more. It's basically free money just waiting to get back in your pockets. And best of all, you can get Atlas to protect all of your devices with only a single subscription. With scary computer hacking villains out to steal your data on a daily basis, there has never been a better time to try out Atlas VPN. Once again, click the link in the description or pinned comment to get started with a 3-year subscription of Atlas VPN for just $1.99 a month. And if you aren't satisfied, you've got a money-back guarantee for a full 30 days. Big thanks to Atlas for sponsoring this video, and let's get to our amazing scene. Right after Crane decides to release my computer. I'm not afraid, Crane, just really peeved if you deleted some of my work.
Unlike later entries where Alfred is helping Bruce every step of the way, always saying things like,
"Certainly, sir. Searching now."
Origins portrays Alfred as a reluctant assistant. He doesn't support Bruce's decision in any way, and thinks he should leave this life behind. We can see this from his very first line in the game.
You do realize it is Christmas Eve, sir.
He doesn't want Bruce to go out, he just wants to celebrate Christmas Eve with his surrogate son. Throughout the entire story, we see Alfred trying to convince Bruce of alternate methods to deal with situations that don't involve putting himself at risk, or just outright criticizing him. He doesn't want Bruce to bother with the assassins, since only he and Bruce know the Batman's true identity. Simply staying inside all night should be perfectly safe. Bruce knows he can't do that though, because the assassins will put innocents in danger to get to him. During the assassin lineup, when discussing Firefly, Batman notes that his obsession is going to be his end, to which Alfred responds,
How unlike anyone I know.
When collecting the glue grenade, Alfred notes that Batman should test it in the lab, then says that Bruce probably won't listen to him.
You never do.
He begs Bruce to call Gordon when he reaches the top of the Gotham Royal, noting that he could be a valuable ally. And this is where we get one of the most important character moments for Bruce. He says,
I don't need any allies.
This is Bruce's critical character flaw throughout all of Arkham Origins, and is what makes this interpretation of Batman my absolute favorite of the saga. And even though it doesn't directly relate to the topic of this video, I just have to bring up this exchange.
It's midnight, sir. I just wanted to wish you a Merry Christmas.
You too.
It shows that despite their differences at this point in the story, they're still family and do care for each other. It's just such a nice little moment between these characters that it's something I always like hearing on repeat playthroughs. And this leads us to our amazing scene. After locking up the Joker, Alfred thinks Bruce's work is done. He's ready to call it a night and finally just celebrate Christmas. But Bruce knows what will happen if he stops tonight. The assassins will endanger more innocents to get to him. So he goes back out. And this is where Alfred finally confronts him.
Master Bruce, stop! Master Bruce! Bruce, I will not in good conscience allow you to go!
And you know he's mad just by the way he addresses Bruce here. In any other instance, throughout the entire saga, Alfred will always address Bruce as Master Bruce or Sir. But here, he deliberately drops the Master and just grunts out Bruce in anger. To my knowledge, this is the only time in the entire series Alfred doesn't regard Bruce formally. Alfred then just goes right out and tells Batman like it is. He's outmatched by these assassins, and before Bruce can go ahead and cut me off, I'm just gonna say that Alfred is completely right. If not for Alfred being on top of everything and successfully synthesizing a cure to Copperhead's neurotoxin, Bruce would have died in that fight. If Alfred hadn't called Captain Gordon to the Gotham Royal, Bruce surely would have been overwhelmed by Bane and killed. Despite the player obviously winning the fight gameplay-wise, Batman was not going to survive that fight on his own. In every cutscene, he's overwhelmed by Bane. He's thrown out of a window twice, thrown around like a rag doll in the halls, and is left panting on his knees before Bane makes his escape. And if not for Gordon sending the bomb squad to deal with the last bomb on the bridge, hundreds would have been killed at the hands of Firefly, and the guilt would rack Batman forever. Bruce may have taken down Killer Croc and Deathstroke on his own, but they met him in fair fights that were ultimately more tests of skill than assassins going for a bounty. Batman is no match for all these assassins, and Alfred lets us know exactly why.
You're not some hardened vigilante. You're a young man with a trust fund and too much anger. You're in over your head, and I don't want this to be your end.
He's not the experienced, grizzled Batman that we've come to know in this series. He's young, inexperienced, and just angry. He doesn't think he's a man, but an unstoppable force. He thinks he's the only one standing between the innocents and the predatory, that he's the reason criminals stop and think twice, that he is feared, that the assassins were hired because he's the reason criminals breathe easier when the sun rises. All of this is true, but none of it is why Alfred is so concerned. He knows criminals fear him, that his mere presence or lack thereof is enough to put criminals on edge and think twice. That isn't why he's confronting Bruce. It's because Bruce thinks that the fear of the common criminals is enough to defeat trained assassins. As I just said, if not for the help of others, Batman would surely be dead by now, because he was in over his head against some of these assassins. He thought his willpower was enough to defeat Copperhead, that his skill was enough to overcome Bane's strength, or that his gadgets were enough to overcome Firefly. But if not for the help of his allies, he would have been wrong in all of those cases. That's the bigger picture Bruce isn't seeing here, and it's what leads to his character arc across this whole game. Bruce doesn't see how much Alfred is really doing for him and takes him for granted. Let's back up to the line that gave this video its title.
Alfred, who do you see when you look at me?
This line goes both ways. Forget who Alfred sees when he looks at Bruce. Who does Bruce see in Alfred? Listen to this line again.
While you are here every night, I am out there.
Does he even see Alfred as an ally, despite everything he's done to help Bruce tonight alone? He tracked the signal to the radio tower Enigma hacked before Bruce even asked. He made dozens of anonymous tips to the GCPD in Bruce's stead for criminals he'd taken down. He made an antidote for Copperhead's poison and transported it to Bruce in literal minutes. He isolated the signal of Electrocutioner's shock gloves that allowed Bruce to track the assassins to the Gotham Royal, all while doing just about everything else Bruce asks of him throughout the night. He's been cooped up in the Batcave, forming a rivalry with a giant king bat all night when he just wanted to celebrate Christmas with Bruce. He knew Bruce was being overrun by Bane, so called Gordon, going against Bruce's wishes, and taking the ridicule when he returned to the Batcave. And then he even obeys Bruce's order later to not call the police when he knows he's in danger of Bane, and still helps with Firefly in the meantime. Hell, he made sure some orphans got Christmas presents from the Wayne Foundation in spite of the danger the outside world poses with criminals and a massive snowstorm. He is doing so much behind the scenes, it's amazing he's still on his feet, despite probably being in at least his 50s by this point. Alfred does so much that Bruce just completely takes for granted. Now though, let's take that line the way Bruce intended for us to take it. This little speech gives us a lot of insight into Bruce as a person. He's not the same boy whose shoes Alfred used to tie. He's not the teenager Alfred drove to his first date. He's not your average vigilante or gung-ho police officer. He's a man with a very particular set of skills. He is a superhero. He is keeping the innocent safe with his mere existence. Criminals do think twice when they see a shadow swoop above their heads. Batman is fear. This is what Alfred doesn't understand, and what he will learn a little bit later. What's truly amazing about this scene is that Bruce and Alfred are both right. Batman is the only thing keeping scum like Ian Chase off the streets. He makes criminals think twice before pulling out that gun. He is making Gotham a better place. But he is also no match for these assassins on his own. Tonight could have been his end, and Alfred would have just had to sit back and watch it happen. But at the same time, both are wrong. Bruce is wrong for thinking he can do this all on his own, and thinking highly trained assassins will go down as easily as the common criminal. But Alfred is also wrong because he doesn't understand how much Bruce's nightly escapades are impacting the little people of Gotham. Both are simultaneously right and wrong about the current situation, and it's the most controversial scene in this game that makes them both understand one another. All these important moments lead us to one of the most controversial moments in Arkham Origins, Alfred's death.
Alfred!
People used to, and in some cases still do, criticize this moment non-stop because of the simple fact that we know Alfred survives this game because he's in Arkham City. And anyone who criticizes this scene for that completely missed the point. Alfred dying and being revived here isn't supposed to be some fake out gotcha moment meant to throw players off. It's the culmination of Bruce's character arc. Bruce has gone this whole game thinking he's some unstoppable force who simply cannot be harmed, and applied this same logic to his home and Alfred. He knows how big of a threat Bane is, so him discovering Bruce's identity should have kept him on high alert the entire rest of the night. But he thought the Batcave's security systems would be enough to keep Alfred safe, and didn't want to bring in police attention and risk them discovering his identity as well. Ultimately, he took a calculated risk going after Firefly instead of returning to Alfred. But the risk was ultimately too great.
Don't add me to the weight you carry.
He lost Alfred that night, and in that moment saw what being Batman does to others. By being Batman, he will put others in danger, including those close to him. And in seeing that happen firsthand with Alfred, he's ready to quit. Ironically, quitting for a reason different than what Alfred wanted. Alfred wanted Bruce to quit Batman because he was always putting himself in danger. The problem is that he was talking to a brick wall. Bruce knows he's putting himself in danger, but at this point, he doesn't care. To quote Bane from The Dark Knight Rises,
"You don't fear death. You welcome it."
Bruce doesn't care if he dies protecting this city. He does care, though, about protecting the people he loves.
I can't defend Gotham. I can't even defend my own home.
Almost losing Alfred shows him how dangerous this lifestyle he wants to live truly is. He's ready to quit right here and now, despite the pleas for help coming from Blackgate. Because he almost lost Alfred, he now understands the threat these villains pose. If he loses, which he ultimately doesn't care if he does, Alfred will probably die too. He can't live with that possibility, so is ready to hang up the cowl. But Alfred now understands Bruce's point of view as well. Before this, Alfred doesn't really believe what Bruce is doing is good to begin with. He only goes along with Bruce's shenanigans because he made a promise to Thomas and Martha. In his eyes, the sooner Bruce gives up this lifestyle, the better, no matter how much good he may be doing. He doesn't want this destructive lifestyle to be his end. However, in being nearly killed by Bane, in a sense, he learns what the little people of Gotham experience on a day-to-day basis. Thugs cornering them in alleyways, causing them to be mugged or even killed. And with this experience, he realizes what the Batman is stopping. He does cause the common criminal to think twice before going out at night, to hesitate going into that back alley. Despite creating all this chaos with 8 assassins after his head, he's still helping those who need it the most in a city overrun with crime. He understands what Bruce needs to do, so for the first time in the 2 years he's been Batman, encourages him to go.
Go. They need you out there.
And this time, it's Bruce who declines to go. After seeing the possibility that he loses everyone close to him, he doesn't think he can do it. But Alfred gives him the most potent lesson he's been needing to learn this whole game.
No, you can't.
Not on your own, but it's high time you realize that you are a man, not an island. And a man's strength comes not from just brawn and intelligence, but also from his allies.
This is Bruce's character arc throughout the whole game. He needs to learn that he isn't an unstoppable force. He's a man, and a man's greatest strength is his allies. This single line makes everything click for Bruce. He now understands that he's been taking Alfred for granted all these years, and with one line of his own, acknowledges that sentiment to Alfred.
They need you.
No. They need us.
And this lesson persists throughout the rest of the finale in Blackgate. He constantly checks up on Alfred to make sure he's doing okay, while Alfred is right back at work doing what he does best. And most importantly, Bruce doesn't work alone. As soon as he rescues the guards outside Blackgate's main gate, he makes sure they're on his side and ready to help contain the escape. And most notably, makes sure Gordon and the GCPD can get inside to help. After defeating Bane, he immediately recruits Gordon and Joseph to help stop the Joker, something he would have never done earlier in the game. In fact, he does the exact opposite multiple times, telling everyone to stay out of his way.
I don't want to hurt you, but you need to stay out of my way.
Now he actually asks them to help him. And the best part is that they do, multiple times. They pursue Joker while Batman subdues Bane, and Gordon ends up fighting alongside Batman to defend Joseph. With just this one encounter with Alfred, Bruce's entire demeanor changes, and he's become a new and better man. He's learned the value of having allies, and treating them with the respect they deserve. These scenes really encapsulate what Arkham Origins is really about. It's not just about Batman trying to survive against 8 deadly assassins hired by a crazed mob boss, or Batman and the Joker's first meeting and the latter being enthralled with the bizarre moral compass of the other, or even Batman having to prove his strength and willpower specifically over Bane, because let's face it, he's the real villain of this game. It's about a surrogate father and son learning to understand one another. One believes he's an unstoppable force, the only thing keeping petty criminals at bay, and that he works best alone. The other doesn't want the former to keep living this dangerous lifestyle, knowing he's outmatched by highly trained killers who won't hesitate to pull a trigger, but supports him anyway because he made a promise. However, by the end of the game, both of these beliefs end up crossing paths, and the two learn from one another. Alfred learns to support Bruce's lifestyle after understanding how much good he's doing, despite knowing the danger that always lurks beneath. And Bruce understands Alfred's concerns for his safety and learns to appreciate just how hard he works for him. And above all, learns that Batman isn't an island. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later, chaps.
Again, we have lost Blackgate. Captain Gordon is calling on anyone for assistance.
They need you.
No. They need us.